We are one of the oldest black families recognized by the United States of America.
Service Sam here with a Nolan Xavier Wells update, and there's this odd letter. It looks like a journal entry that just hit the internet.
I found out that the father of the girl who allegedly threw the party that night, used to work at Oracle.
A portion of Horn Island was sold last year for $25 million.
What if the most important piece of evidence in the Nolan Wells case isn't the video everybody has been arguing about? What if it's a phone call? Because according to the filing discussed in these clips, Nolan Wells's legal team isn't simply asking for the little pseudo audio recording that everybody has been passing around. They're asking for the original recordings, call detail records, caller information, start and end times, routing information, transfers, conference records, dispatcher information, messages, and the communication records surrounding the July 4th incident. And here's what really caught my attention. The request reportedly focuses on a specific window of time, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. on July 4th, around the west or northwest tip of Horn Island. So I'm asking you right now, what do you think those records could reveal? Because after you watch everything we're about to show you, I want you to come back to that question. If you've been following the Nolan Wells case, you already know there are a lot of moving pieces. The boat, the calls, Nolan's phone, Horn Island, the people who were there, the investigation, and now records surrounding that July 4th call are being sought through a subpoena. But there's another part of this story that I don't want you to miss. Because we're also hearing directly from people connected to the Wells family about their history, their legacy, and why they say the fight for justice for Nolan means much more to them than just this one case. So we're going to let these clips play without interrupting them. I want you to hear what people are saying for yourself. Then, after all of the clips have played, I'm coming back to break down what actually stands out, what's being alleged, what can potentially be verified, and what still needs an answer. And before we get into these clips, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the Black Docket, and turn on your notifications. Because if you've been following this case and you want to keep up with the documents, the filings, the timeline, and the questions that are still unanswered, you need to be here for the next update. And here's where I want you to participate. Don't just tell me your theory. I want you to tell me the one question you think investigators still haven't answered. Put that question in the comments right now. Because by the time these clips are finished, you might have a completely different question. And I want to see what stands out to you. Let's get into it.
I want you to take a look at this video with me real quick.
Our family, my family, the Wells family, we are one of the oldest black families recognized by the United States of America. In fact, we're older than the United States of America. But that's another story for another time. We've served in every war this country has had, and our forefathers have given land to the United States to secure our southern borders during our country's infancy. We've provided resources to secure the Commonwealth of South Mississippi. We've contributed so much that I couldn't even name it all. But the Dantzlers, the Goodyears, the Cumberses, and South Mississippi know of us. See, it's way deeper than you think. At a time and place where Negroes were known to receive the worst treatment, we had long established ourselves alongside a relationship with Southern Mississippi and the United States of America, just as we do today in serving our communities in various ways, skills, and fields. Cuz's legacy, Nolan Wells, is part of that. From the life he lived and those he filled with love, to the knowledge of his name and the energy that gives. Let it be used to bring us closer as a community, because that's what he was. He was a Wells, and that's who we are. We love. Know Cuz, know us, and respect that. That's all we ask.
I know y'all remember this.
You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Any corruption and cover-up starts with your connections.
Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back.
And guess what town the DA lives in? Ocean Springs.
I understand the public's urgency to know what happened to Nolan, But we are not taking time for time's sake.
Do this not remind you of the Drewski skit when he was doing Erica Kirk?
But we are not taking time for time's sake.
The Mississippi Rising Coalition recently posted this with questions on Facebook for the DA. One question, does the DA have any personal relationships with the friend's parents? And the second one, because she's involved in a lot of these local women's groups, even women's Republican groups, does she have any connection with Judge Ashley Cole? And would that be a conflict of interest? And asking if she should recuse herself from an investigation involving a child of one of her professional colleagues.
Mike, it looks like your boat's taking on water, bud.
Here are actual examples of boats in distress, sinking, taking on water, needing to be rescued and towed. Because I do not believe the alibi of those folks.
I pulled the records, and look what was filed today in the Nolan Wells estate case. The legal team has issued a subpoena to CETO Services International, demanding records connected to that July 4th call. This is not somebody asking nicely on Facebook. This is a court-issued demand for records, electronically stored information, and the materials identified in Exhibit A. And baby, they didn't just ask for the little audio clip everybody has been passing around. They are asking for the original native recordings, call detail records, hauler identification, dial numbers, start and end times, routing, transfers, conferences, dispatcher information, messages, dispatch records, and the system Jews to preserve those communications. And here's where it gets interesting. The subpoena specifically defines the incident as a July 4th request for assistance near the west or northwest tip of Horn Island, including the report that the bilge pump had stopped working, the vessel was taking on water or sinking, the request for a tow to Fort Bayou, communications between the dispatcher and the CETO captain, a separate communication involving the vessel owner, member, relative, or grandfather, and any attempted transfer or conference with the caller. Did you hear me? They want the whole communication chain. The principal time window they identify as 2 p.m. through 8 p.m. Central Time on July 4th.
They're going to come for my career.
You said that.
I told them, I was like, they're going to come for my career. I don't know if it is going to be now, in a few weeks, in a few months. I said, but I'm telling you, they are going to come for my career. And when I say they, I'm not talking about any specific group of people, just people who don't like the fact that we are just wanting answers.
Yes.
We're just
time out. Who? It appears that all the black people support you. Who is going to come for your job? According to the internet of what has been presented on the internet and publicly, she only has one complaint. She has not been fired. I think her conduct should get her fired. The statement that she made at that press conference. Now, you can say whatever you want to say, but if a white person came out and said, you got to talk to your kids about hanging around black people, pretty much, the way they move in spaces where people don't look like them. If a person says something so racially charged and biased, I think that person should not be working in a setting where they have to deal with the people in which they claim that you got to be careful around. That's not reasonable. That's not practical. You are a professional. You can't be telling, I raise my kids to watch out, especially if people don't look like you. That is racial. That is a racist thing to say. That is a bias and prejudice thing to say. If a white lady came out and said that, I think it's wrong and I think she shouldn't have her job, and then somebody fired over her saying that, but even then, nobody's firing her. She got one complaint on her job. Ashley Cole, Warren's stepmother, has gotten hundreds of complaints. The woman doing the autopsy, the coroner's office, hundreds of complaints, thousands of complaints, thousands of people calling and trying to get them fired and threatening to kill them. I'm even getting threats just because I interviewed.
To those who are going to comment they can't watch the show anymore because of the support, no worries.
Hi friends, I'm so excited to learn with you today.
Yeah, this is about to be a Miss Rachel and Bluey household. I don't even got kids. It's about to be me and the damn dogs watching it on every device, on the TV, on the iPad. Girl, we got you. Don't even worry about it, Rachel.
Mo, I'm scrolling through Instagram the other week, and they even created AIs of you buying sports cars.
Oh my, we just saw that. I was like, what? That doesn't even look. No, I'm happy with my little car. Like, I'm not trying to.
But the intentionality of wickedness.
Absolutely. It's
to
disgusting.
give a bad portrayal is something I've never seen.
No.
At this level and at this height. And the end game, I think, is just intimidation.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when you hear cyberbullying, I'm thinking it's middle schoolers. So cyberbullying is in high school, but not for adults who are grieving.
Nolan Wells, the blackout in Gary, Indiana, public lynchings of black people. What do those three things have in common? All of these were stories that the mainstream news media did not report until we started making them trend on social media. And by we, I mean black folks. I'm talking about us. Sorry if you're not tribe. I'd be jealous if I were you, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is this. We know that the algorithms are trash. We know that the algorithm is built against us and people who talk about what we talk about. We know that these algorithms and these platforms are controlled by billionaires who want to control us. And we have more power than we think. So when we decide to get in unison, be one band, one sound, we can actually dictate the terms of the news instead of the news dictating the terms to us. Never ever forget your power and keep on saying them names. And make sure that you're subscribed to Black-owned media, independent media, Joy Reid, Roland Martin, Don Lemon, The Root, The Griot. They are telling our stories responsibly, with care, and with truth. All right? We ain't got to pay attention to the people. We got our own.
Now, all of this is alleged, y'all. It's just alleged, okay? Hear me out. Now, in the video, the young lady who is talking, she is saying that Warren had previously already knew that night at the party that Katie was not with Nolan. Hear me now. And then Warren says that he had to call someone and ask them to ask Katie, do you know where Nolan is, right? Now, this was before he even called Miss Christine. And Katie said, no, I thought he was with you guys. Anyway, so then Warren goes outside for his alibi. He goes outside with a couple of friends that he's out there with on the dock because Miss Christine hadn't called Nolan's phone like around three different times. No reply, no answer. Warren said, well, I called her one time and she didn't answer. Then he calls back again and he tells Miss Christine or says, have you seen Nolan? Miss Christine's like, no, I thought he was with you. While she's talking on the phone to him, she looks on the 360 app and she tells him, because he never told her that he held Nolan's phone. It was when she saw the 360 app that shows that and he was like, oh yeah, we have it. And then he even tells her that Katie is with Nolan. Nolan is with Katie. He lied. I know that it makes you guys feel so much better when you guys can sit here and talk about the Wells family and run their name in the ground. However, let me prove to you that you lie and that she was not given yet afforded the ability to even look at the autopsy results and or other. Hold on. So if you can read, because a lot of y'all can't on this app, then you would have read where it tells you that the family and the law firm has been complying versus the DA and the ME and those other folk over there are refusing to stick to what they said they would do and have even yet so far as gone to not even allow Dr. Mitchell to complete his second autopsy findings or not regarding the death of Nolan Wells. So what you talking about? Because it seems like you're lying. It seems like what y'all love to do. Okay? Have a good day. I thought it strange that yesterday was Nolan Wells' birthday and those alleged associates had their attorney post a picture that looks like it was about 4 or 5 years old. Maybe because, Warren, bro, my God, I'm just saying. So that just is a continuation to show you that if you had to go that far to post a picture of your friend, your bro, your buddy, lets us know that you guys weren't really that deeply in the friendship, and all of those other pictures that you guys have continuously posted or was shared by Tatum were all edited, and which is, again, like I said, you could clearly tell that all of those images were altered and edited to make Nolan appear in those pictures as though that you guys really had this extensive friendship. Because why, of all the pictures in the world, will y'all go back a couple of years? Like, it absolutely makes no sense. But I digress. Y'all be blessed.
Crocs on ground. Listen, I got something for y'all today. You're gonna freaking be jaw dropped when I tell you this. But guess what? A portion of Horn Island was sold last year for $25 million. Hold on, let me show you. About 5.8% of Horn Island is owned by individual people. There's about 174 acres, and I think it's spanned about 16 different parcels that go from east to west across Horn Island. Now the kicker in this is who owns a portion of the stock in this. I'll give you one guess. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that you have to do your research on this one because, damn it, I can't really say much more than that. I hope this has really put a fire under your asshole to go view some more stuff about who owns what around here in South Mississippi, as well as what is possibly on the Wool Market exit, also known as Shriners, Freemason. Anyway, y'all stay blessed and have a good night. I'll see y'all later. Please go check out my backup account that is linked in the bio. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Bet you $1,000,000 if it was 5 black boys and 1 white boy on the boat. By now, there would have been an arrest, there would have been a warrant, there would have been a seizure, but because America doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter, they trying to act offended because we want to ask the question, what happened to our brother?
That's right. Talk that talk. Talk that talk.
And when we ask the question, what happened? The response is we're still gathering information. We're waiting on toxicology, waiting on the grand jury. Am I my brother's keeper? That's the question underneath every delayed subpoena, every sealed file, every complaint filed against a grieving mother's nursing license. Instead of asking whoever left her son on the island, the institutional Mississippi still muttering Cain's excuse, it's not my problem. I wanted to come to Mississippi today from Georgia to let the system and to let the establishment know, let that be the last time you try to intimidate a black mother. She's got every right to fight for her son, to stand for her son, to question her son, and you better not mess with her nurse's license. Leave that black woman alone. And I want them to know if the dirt wouldn't be quiet, what makes you think the water's gonna be quiet? Because black people know something about coming through the water.
Y'all, just when I thought things could not get worse, this case is just taking all types of turns. Like, it's crazy. Now that we done found out that the DA husband is an FBI agent, like, we can't even get help from the FBI. But y'all, hear me out. Whatever's in Nolan's phone, the DA know what's inside the phone. They've been talking to the granddaddy. They've been talking to the parents, the judge. Man, these people are connected. You got governors. You got people that own Horn Island, CETO, public relations. You got doctors, anesthesiologists. Like, these people, this is bad. This is really bad. In GTA, these people could run a whole organ trafficking if they wanted to. This is crazy. This is beyond crazy. They know what's in the phone. They already been in contact with the kids. They know what happened. Everybody just got to stick to the story. That's why they want to all of a sudden demand the phone, because they want to delete what's in the phone that will prove what actually happened to him. A lot of people have sent me private messages saying that Nolan had a video recording of them either doing rugs or Wyatt doing rugs, or Warren's little brother getting beat up at one of his MAA matches.
Did y'all see them celebrating Nolan's birthday?
Oh, let's thank God for the gift of life that we cannot take for granted.
Well, that's a tearjerker.
Sad, man. Sad.
It's a tearjerker there. It's so heartbreaking seeing Christine and Elmore trying to stay strong for their family and not break down while celebrating their baby boy's first birthday since he passed away. And it was a beautiful celebration. Christine also made a post. She said, "Today you are 19, Nono. There are so many things we want to say, but we will keep it simple. As we sit here and reflect on what an amazing kiddo you grew up to be, we can't help but to feel blessed, honored, proud, but most of all, thankful. Thankful we were able to experience a glimpse of God's love in human form. Although you are no longer physically here with us, we will always celebrate you and the legacy you have left us to protect. You have taught us so much about life and how every day is a blessing and how we have to do better at just living in the moment. Thank you for being the best son, brother, grandson, nephew, and friend anyone could ask for. Thank you for bringing joy, laughter, and real happiness to us each and every day. You are truly our angel. Raising you has been an absolute joy and honor. You will be missed every second of every day, and you will never be forgotten, our sweet sunshine. Happy heavenly 19th birthday, Nono. Remember, don't eat too much Oreo cake and hug Grandma for us. We love you, our beloved son and brother. Love, mom, dad, siblings, Louie, Ling, and family. And then she had to put a disclaimer at the bottom that says, keep negative comments to yourself. Remember, Nolan is my and Elmore's son, who we lost. It's really a shame that she even has to put a disclaimer like that on her post. Motherfuckers are just evil in this world. It don't make no goddamn sense that a grieving mother has to ask people to leave negative comments off of her post celebrating her deceased son's birthday. That don't make no goddamn sense.
Okay, now that you've watched all of that from beginning to end, let's slow this down. Because there is a lot happening here. And I want to start with something that I think is important. The new clip about the Wells family's history changes the way we should understand the emotional context surrounding this case. In that clip, the speaker describes the Wells family as one of the oldest black families recognized by the United States and says the family's history predates the United States itself. They talk about ancestors who served in wars, land that was given to the United States, contributions to South Mississippi, and a long-standing connection to the region. Now, those historical claims are significant claims, but they're also claims that should be independently documented if we're presenting them as established history. So I'm not going to tell you that every historical detail in that speech has been independently proven just because it was said in the clip. What I will say is that the speaker clearly sees Nolan's death as part of a much larger family legacy. And that's important to understand, because for the Wells family, according to these clips, Nolan isn't simply a name attached to a news story. He's part of a family identity that they believe has existed in South Mississippi for generations. And then the second portion of that clip becomes even more emotional. The speaker is essentially telling the Wells family to stay unified, stay peaceful, stay connected to their faith, and continue fighting for justice for Nolan Xavier Wells. Whatever someone's personal opinion about the broader political or racial statements in that clip, the central message is very clear. They don't want Nolan's name to disappear. And that theme carries directly into the later birthday footage. Because after all the discussion about subpoenas, phones, boats, and Horn Island, we're suddenly reminded that Nolan was 19. He had parents, siblings, grandparents, friends, and a family that was still celebrating his birthday after he was gone. That's an important part of this story that can easily get buried underneath all the internet speculation. Now let's move to the part that I think deserves the closest attention from an investigative standpoint. The Cito subpoena. Because this is where the conversation potentially moves away from social media speculation and toward records. According to the clip, the legal team issued a subpoena to Cito Services International, seeking records connected to the July 4th call. And listen to the scope described. They're reportedly seeking the original native recordings, call detail records, caller identification, dial numbers, start and end times, routing, transfers, conference information, dispatcher information, messages, dispatch records, and records related to preserving those communications. That's important because the little audio clip people have been arguing over online represents only one piece of the story. The underlying records could potentially provide a much broader timeline. Who initiated the communication? When? How long did it last? Was somebody transferred? Was another person brought into the conversation? What happened before the call? What happened afterward? Those are questions that a raw communication record may help answer. And according to the transcript, the subpoena identifies the relevant incident as a July 4th request for assistance near the west or northwest tip of Horn Island. It also references a bilge pump reportedly stopping, the vessel taking on water or sinking, a request for a tow to port, communications between the dispatcher and Cito captain, and another communication involving the vessel owner, relative, or grandfather. That's very specific, and that's why I think this is something worth watching closely. Because if those records are produced, they could potentially help test the different versions of the timeline. And that's really the heart of this case. The timeline. Who knew what? When did they know it? Who called whom? Where were the phones? What was happening on the boat? And what happened immediately afterward? Now, that's also why the claims involving Warren, Katie, and Christine are worth separating carefully. The clips present an allegation that Warren already knew Katie wasn't with Nolan. Then there's an account saying Warren had to contact someone and ask them to ask Katie where Nolan was. Then there are the calls involving Christine. Then the 360 location information. Then the claim that Warren said Katie was with Nolan. Those are specific allegations. And because they're specific, they are potentially testable. That's the important distinction. We don't need to decide right now who is telling the truth. We need to ask what records could confirm or contradict the different accounts. If there was a phone call, can the call record establish that? If there was a location, can the available location data establish it? If there was a message, does the underlying digital record exist? That's how you investigate competing accounts. You don't simply pick the version that sounds the most convincing. You compare the statements against the evidence. And then we have Nolan's phone. This is another area where there has been a tremendous amount of speculation. In one of the clips, people claim Nolan may have had videos or recordings involving other people. But I want to make this very clear. Those are claims contained in the clips. We do not have the alleged recordings in front of us. So I'm not going to tell you Nolan definitely had those videos. That would be going beyond what this material establishes. But if those recordings did exist, then obviously Nolan's phone would be extremely important. Which raises a series of straightforward questions. Was the phone recovered? Was it preserved? Was it forensically examined? What information was extracted? Were deleted files recovered? Were there recordings? Were there timestamps? Were there communications relevant to the timeline? Those questions are much more useful than arguing over rumors. Now let's talk about Horn Island. Because this is probably one of the biggest areas of speculation coming out of these clips. We're told that a portion of Horn Island is privately owned. The clip discusses approximately 5.8%, around 174 acres, and multiple parcels stretching across the island. Then comes the question, who owns part of it? And that's where people started looking at property information involving Edmonston Associated and references to a mid-island tract. Then people started comparing that information with photographs and locations. And suddenly, the internet started asking, does this family actually own part of Horn Island? Okay, that's a question. But the next step is where we have to be disciplined. If somebody owns property on Horn Island, that fact alone does not establish anything about Nolan's death. The important questions are, where exactly is the property? Who owns it? When did they acquire it? What are the parcel boundaries? Is the property public or private? Who had access? And most importantly, does that particular property overlap with an area relevant to Nolan's final known movements? Because that's the connection that matters. Not simply that a person owns land. The location matters. The timing matters. The access matters. The people who were there matter. And any evidence connecting that location to Nolan matters. That's why the statement from the retired Coast Guard person saying, "Everyone's connected, bro," is interesting as a comment, but it isn't proof. A comment doesn't establish ownership. A photograph doesn't establish a crime. And a property record doesn't establish what happened to Nolan. If people are saying, that's exactly where they were, then, okay, show us. Show the map. Show the parcel. Show the ownership record. Show where the property sits. And then compare that location with the documented timeline. That's how you turn an internet theory into something that can actually be investigated. And I think that's especially important because there is a huge difference between saying, this property exists, and saying, this property was involved in Nolan's death. The second statement requires evidence. And until that evidence exists, it needs to remain a question. Now, another major issue raised throughout these clips is the investigation itself. We're hearing people question the DA. We're hearing questions about relationships. We're hearing questions about whether certain people should recuse themselves. We're hearing criticism about the handling of the case. We're hearing claims about the autopsy. We're hearing claims about the phone. And we're hearing people demanding federal involvement. Again, some of these are allegations or opinions expressed in the clips. That doesn't automatically make them established facts. For example, the claim concerning the DA's husband being an FBI agent is something that would need to be independently verified before we draw conclusions from it. Even if the relationship is accurate, the existence of that relationship alone wouldn't establish wrongdoing. You would still need to establish what role that person played, whether they were involved in anything related to the investigation, and whether the relationship created an actual conflict. That's the difference between asking a legitimate question and declaring an answer. And I think that distinction is especially important in a case that has become so emotionally charged. Because you can demand transparency without declaring someone guilty. You can question the investigation without inventing evidence. You can be skeptical without treating every connection as proof of a conspiracy. That's the standard I want us to keep. Now, there's another thing I noticed when listening to all these clips together. Almost every conversation eventually comes back to one thing. People want answers. The family wants answers. People following the case want answers. People questioning the investigation want answers. And the longer the answers take, the more speculation fills the vacuum. That's just what happens. When people don't have information, theories grow. And social media makes that even faster. One person finds a property record. Someone else finds an old photograph. Someone else finds a comment. Someone else finds a connection. And suddenly, all of those things get combined into one story. But that's exactly when you have to slow down. Because some of those pieces may turn out to be meaningful. Some may turn out to be completely unrelated. And some may simply be wrong. That's why the records matter. The phone records, the communication records, the location data, the property records, the court filings, the forensic evidence. Those are the things that can separate an allegation from something demonstrable. And then there's Nolan himself. Because after all the arguments, all the accusations, all the theories, his family celebrated his birthday, his first birthday since his death. And hearing his family talk about him as their son, brother, grandson, nephew, and friend, that's where the reality of this case hits. Nolan wasn't a theory. He wasn't a hashtag. He wasn't a TikTok argument. He was a 19-year-old young man whose family is now celebrating his birthday without him. And Christine's message is especially difficult to hear. She talks about being thankful that they got to experience Nolan's life. She talks about the joy he brought to the family. She talks about the legacy he left behind. And then there's that line, asking people to keep negative comments to themselves. That's heartbreaking. Because whatever somebody believes about this case, there should be room for basic humanity. A grieving family should be able to remember their son without having to fight strangers in the comments. And that's where I think the entire conversation comes back around. The Wells family is talking about legacy. They're talking about survival. They're talking about unity. They're talking about justice for Nolan. And at the same time, the legal side of this case is seeking records that could potentially help clarify what happened. Those two things can exist at the same time. The emotional fight for Nolan's memory and the factual fight to establish what happened to him. But if we're going to do the second one properly, we have to stay focused. We need the evidence. So let's go back to the question I asked you at the beginning. What could those July 4th records reveal? Could they clarify the communication timeline? Could they confirm who spoke to whom? Could they establish when certain calls happened? Could they help resolve conflicting accounts? We don't know yet. And that's exactly why the records matter. And when it comes to Horn Island, the same principle applies. If there is legitimate property information connecting a particular parcel to an area relevant to Nolan's final movements, then show it. If the connection isn't there, then we shouldn't pretend that it is. That's how we're going to approach this case. Not by protecting a theory, not by protecting a person, not by protecting an institution, and not by chasing every rumor that gets posted online. We're going to follow the receipts. So if you made it all the way through this video, I want you to do exactly what I asked you at the beginning. Give me one question. Just one. What is the biggest question you believe investigators still haven't answered about Nolan Wells? Put it in the comments. And if you want me to keep following the filings, the records, the timeline, and whatever comes next in this case, subscribe to the Black Docket. Hit that notification bell. And if you believe this case deserves continued attention, share this video, because we're going to keep watching, we're going to keep asking questions, and we're going to keep following the evidence. Justice for Nolan Wells.